to me, it felt just so clear. And, you know, the tradition of all of Christianity, I felt supported that. And it felt like I was united with the entire, 2,000-year history of Christianity. And I began to just like become so grateful for the Mass.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Vox Poly. My name is Andrew Hull, and today we are joined by two of my dearest friends. Welcome to Vox Poly, Alex and Jeannine Norby.
Pleasure to be
here.
Hello. Now, you guys have pretty much done it all at St. Paul's. You know, Alex was an intern. Jeannine was a leader here. She was my FIG leader, my freshman year group leader. We go way back. Alex, you led men's groups. You know, we've done pilgrimages together. We've been in small groups. We've been to hundreds of Newman dinners probably. But you guys have never been on the Vox Poly, so this is a special time.
Yes, right.
Yeah, we're pumped. We're gonna have a great show today. So thanks everyone for tuning in. All right, Alex and Jeannine, you know, you guys are kind of legendary people, at least in my mind. But I think to the community of St. Paul's, you guys are pretty legendary. But for those that don't know you, let's give a couple minutes of brief testimonies here, especially at your time at UW-Madison. So Jeannine, we'll start off with you ladies first,
okay.
Of course.
Okay.
Please start us off.
Yeah, well, I came into Madison as a freshman, obviously. It was honestly my last choice of schools that I would go to. So God was like, I have a different plan for you. And I was super set on getting into the nursing school. And so spoiler, I did end up graduating in nursing.
Let's go.
But in order to get into the nursing school, I really, really needed leadership experience. Like, that's what I learned. Like, even before I started, they were like, if there's anything I should tell you, the nursing school loves leadership experience. So anything you could do for leadership, do it. And I was like, okay, I will. And my freshman and sophomore year, I really barely came to St. Paul's. I would go to Sunday Mass. I was dedicated because my mom would always ask me every Sunday, did you go to Mass? And I knew she would see right through me if I said no. So I came to Mass, and then I was like, well, shoot, I still need a leadership opportunity. My mom was really on me about getting involved at St. Paul's. And so I ended up reaching out to the freshman intern and was like, hey, can I lead one of these freshman groups? It would be really good leadership. And he was like, sure. And I literally didn't do an interview. And this guy did not know who I was, really. I mean, we barely knew each other. And if he knew, what my lifestyle was before, he would have been like, you are not qualified to lead one of these freshman groups in the faith. I was like, well, I was raised Catholic. I can probably figure it out.
Pray Hail Mary, too.
I pray Hail Mary. Oh, yeah. At that time, I was not really practicing, at all, other than Mass on Sunday. But, outside of that, I just, didn't. Mm-hmm. I would probably do, a Hail Mary a day, maybe. Something like that. And so loved the college life. Madison was super fun. And I ended up leading one of these freshman groups.
Which I was in.
You were in.
Yeah,
Andrew happened to be in. And here you are today, so it must have worked.
Exactly. No, and praise God. Jeannine Tremblay was Norby now.
Norby, yeah, right.
Was my FIG leader. We had a great time back in the day.
did.
We had a crazy group.
But one thing with that was I was required, in order to lead you guys, I was required to then go through discipleship with another intern. Mm-hmm. And I gave this girl a really hard time. I was like, I'm not doing that. I already know the faith.
Right.
This is not for me. And she would not let it go. And so we ended up meeting
Audrey
Noel, shout out Audrey Noel. We ended up meeting quite a bit, and then slowly but surely she just really started introducing things about the faith to me and pointing out things in my life that I was like, wait, I have this super twisted. And then long story short, I became really involved at St. Paul's, met amazing people, and just never looked back after that.
Right. And besides meeting the person of Jesus, another very important person that you met was
my
Alex.
husband.
Oh! It still sounds crazy to me.
It's been less than 2 months.
Right.
I know.
They were married May the 24th
of 2025.
2025, the year of our Lord, a great Jubilee year of hope.
Right.
And in this Jubilee year of hope, Alex and Jeannine came together. St. Josephat,
Right.
A
Say
beautiful,
just
beautiful
that.
place.
We're still putting together the video.
Legendary
Right.
place.
It was an amazing, amazing wedding. I was blessed to read, be in the wedding party, so it was awesome. But Alex, tell us a little bit how we got to that point of, eventually marrying this great woman, Jeannine Norby. But how did you become the man that you are today?
Yeah, it was a long, windy road. A little different background than Jeannine. Faith wasn't much of a thing when I was growing up, but we'd go to mass on Sunday. That's about it. There wasn't a whole lot to it though. So I kind of just came here, continued that habit, going to mass on Sunday, but no relationship, no prayer, no nothing with it. It was pretty, I would say, robotic and dry. And then I was kind of faced with this, ultimatum, I guess, within me of like, should I really stop or like keep going to mass? Because all the people I was with in the dorm that I would hang out with, just like completely different values. And there was not really anybody in my life at that time that was going to mass. And so I had to become much more intentional to make that a part of my week. And then so I think it was kind of a confrontation of myself of like, do I actually believe in this or is it going to be set aside? And then so providential moment, shout out the old pastor, Father Eric Nielsen. He was selling New Testaments after mass for like $5. I was like, not a bad deal. Haven't really ever read the Bible, so got one of those bad boys, and you just read a chapter or two a day, and probably within a semester I finished it. And I think by that time I was kind of on fire, like in my heart, like I knew that this was true. Mm-hmm. And then so I did a deep, like kind of intellectual dive into the faith and like why these things that we believe are true, and couldn't have been more convinced after that, and got aided by a past relationship ending kind of abruptly. So to all the boys out there listening, if she breaks up with you, it's God's will. I know you're not thinking that right now, but it is, trust me.
That's right, and she's losing out on a good one.
Yeah.
Right,
you're better off without her, King. And so that also kind of, it was something that God took away from my life and really just caused me to grow in faith, grow in relationship with Him. That was the first time that I really developed a commitment to pray every day. And then I was actually not even involved at St. Paul's, went to Blessed Sacrament because I didn't know anybody here and was, thought getting involved with people at church was weird because it wasn't a thing growing up for me. So kind of just avoided St. Paul's until I met our blessed friend Greg Lyon in kinesiology class. Shout out Greg. Dude came in dripping wet, the middle of January, no shoes, just a towel on,
So wild.
And then he invited me to his men's group.
Well, the contact card in Greg's phone is still Alex Norby Kines class.
It is, and it shall never be changed.
Exactly right. All right, so Greg brings you into St. Paul's. How does that kind of change your life?
Life-changing. I mean, I feel like I've been blessed with pretty good friends throughout my life and even throughout college apart from St. Paul's, but I mean, there's just nothing that compares to like the depth of friendship that God has given us here. And so, I mean, right away I could just tell that there was something different about these friendships that I was forming.
Right.
And, it was like, it was leading me towards God 100%, which, in other aspects and other friendships, I couldn't really say that was the case. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just such a blessing to, have a group of people that are just so focused on, your best interest and loving God, and at the same time, just having a grand old time.
Right. Let's speak a little bit more about the importance of good, holy friendships. I think both of you, kind of in your testimonies, you had one time had a group of, some would say secular people that are kind of not pursuing the faith or virtue, and then you kind of transitioned into having more of those faith-centered, virtuous relationships. But that transition is really, really tough. So, Jeannine, could you just speak a little bit about your kind of experience of losing some of those friendships, or what it looks like, and maybe your advice for some students out there in navigating those friendships?
Yeah, no, this was a big thing for me. I really struggled with this. And I feel like one of my just personal things that I honestly still struggle with is putting so much worth into what people think of me. I just have in my fashion and my personality and my like everything that I do, it's just kind of always been centered around like what these people think of me. And so when it came to like finding friendships that were in the faith, I don't know. At first, I was super closed off to making friends in the faith because I was like, just like my mind like was convinced of these stereotypes. Just like they're weird, they're not normal, they don't know how to have fun.
Yep.
I'm gonna be seen as an outlier. Like I'm not gonna be able to relate to anybody anymore. And so it was weird because I started just like kind of at first it started like in my days, I would like hang out with like St. Paul's people, but then at night I would go out with like all my party friends. And I kind of lived that for a while. And I still am close. I'm still friends with those like friends that I've had like that I met like freshman year and sophomore year and kind of had throughout that time. But I would say, and I don't think it's wrong to still stay in touch with those friends. And I think it can happen where you like actually like lose those friends entirely. Like you guys disagree on morals and like religious beliefs, and so much so that like those friends are no longer like you don't keep in touch at all anymore. And I would say like I still keep in touch with those friends, and I like kind of went out of my way a little bit, a lot less so as I like kind of got involved here. But I met friends that were just so, like you said, like there was something different about these friendships that were just like so much more fulfilling, I guess. And they knew me, and they didn't. I'm not saying this to like say that this is what my other friends did, but I just kind of found this in myself where I like was trying to like impress them or like participate in things in order to fit in, and it just was like this kind of ripple effect of like I don't know. It ended up like leading me down this road of just like getting really into drinking and partying and just like really like working through a lot of vices. It was hard to combat that. And so, but these other friends, like I didn't feel like I needed to impress them. Like I could tell that they really enjoyed my company just for who I was, you know? And they were striving, like they were encouraging me in like ways that I knew that I needed to be encouraged with. And they were actually like normal and funny, and we had fun together. And like that was just like so like mind-boggling to me because I couldn't make those two relate. Like for some reason my mind was like, no, these two do not coexist. But I feel like the Lord was really gentle with me. He was like, girl, like trust me. Like you can still have normal friends. And like this is a lie that I think I really struggled with as well, is that like the more that I got into my faith and the more that I like trust in God, the more that I would lose myself and like lose those things that I like really enjoyed doing and the fun that I would have with my friends. But actually it was like the opposite. Like I actually found myself so much more like through those faithful friendships. And again, I'm still friends with those people from before, but like I don't need those friendships, I guess I would say. Anymore. You know?
Yeah. No, I think that's very, very well put. I think that's one of the biggest lies that, especially for college students, that they tend to believe in when they start diving in their faith is, you know, I can have the faith, but I'm going to lose out on fun. I'm going to lose out on all the memories. I'm going to lose out on this, you know, time in my life where it's supposed to be the best 4 years. But as our man, John Paul II says, you lose absolutely nothing with the life with Christ, right? Nothing. And I've kind of found that in my own life, Norbs. I know for you it's kind of the same story, but talk a little bit about kind of your experience with navigating those friendships and how having holy, virtuous friendships really transformed you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just started out with Greg and you got introduced to pretty quickly thereafter. And I mean, just kind of like seeing, because at that point I was very convinced of the faith and like knew that this was, I knew I needed to make God the center of my life, but it's hard, or it's a lot harder when you don't have anybody surrounding you that also wants to do that. And so it was so refreshing to have people that, you know, again, I think I fell into kind of like the same stereotype that you did of like, oh, there's not going to be any people like me or, you know, whatever in the St. Paul's community, and, you know, I'll think they're weird or they'll think I'm weird, whatever. But it was like the exact opposite. You know, you end up finding a lot of people just like yourself. And I don't know, it was just a very comforting feeling. And yeah, all those all those memories that, you think you'll miss out on, or the fun you think you'll miss out on. I mean, I don't know. With the friendships that we've formed, I don't even miss. I don't think I missed out on anything.
Right.
I mean, I've just been reflecting actually, over the past couple of weeks with us coming up, of like just being super nostalgic about all the years we had at St. Paul's. So, and the friendships that we formed through there. But yeah, I think it transforms you very deeply. And I think it's, there's a reason why Jesus had, multiple apostles and then disciples further than that, not just like one person, because, we are relational people, and we need others to accompany us on that life to virtue and holiness. And so having people that you can look up to in that, or are just accompanying you in that same spot, is just, it's indispensable.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful thing about St. Paul's that we've all found, is that it's these people that are, striving for holiness. They're trying to make faith the center of their life, but they're normal, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the separator, is that maybe we grew up in a town where we thought the faith was you kind of an outcast if you are a Christian, but you come here and it's just they're normal people who are striving for holiness right in the middle of campus, right in the middle of the world. I think that's the beautiful thing about St. Paul's. And so let's talk a little bit more about what you're kind of passionate about with the faith. What was like one thing that really transformed you from, yeah, sure, I'll go to, Mass on Sunday, but then you went, no, I need to go more. I need to make Jesus Christ the center of everything that I do. Jeannine, what was kind of that thing for you?
This is so funny because this is where you and I are so different. To be so honest, yeah, right? Like, God has a better plan. No, you and I are so different in this way, because I feel like for you, it's a lot more like you said earlier, like the intellectual things that just like grabbed you. Whereas for me, I mean, like I am a super relational person, and honestly, like kind of off topic, but that's been like the hardest part of our marriage, is because like I grew up in a big family and like with 10 people, and like I've been growing up with like people in my house at all times. And now that we're married, it's just us. And you're like, I just want to read and like think. And I'm like, this is what? You don't want to talk all the time. So that's how like I feel like God really does meet you where you're at. And you don't always see it right away. But I feel like for me, the thing that like made me so convinced of the faith was, and like knew that it was like, I don't know, something that I needed to really make a more of a priority was the relational aspect. I grew up Catholic, you grew up Catholic, but my family was practicing Catholic.
Right.
And my parents were really good about like making it like a normal part of our day. But like, I feel like in my heart, I didn't think about it as like a relationship. I thought God was like out there and I'm down here. Yep. And like, I knew that he was real and I was scared to go to hell. And so like, I knew I needed to do something. But like we were not buddy. Mm-hmm. We were just like we were totally
just kind of that big bearded man in the sky.
Like the big bearded man in the sky. Like you don't know me. Like you don't understand me. Like kind of like the teenage angst. That was me. And so, anyways, still getting through that. But no. But like once I met those friends and they like knew Jesus and they knew that he was like that he loved them. I'm like, what do you have that I don't? Like he loves you. Like oh, like maybe he would love me too, And so I feel like once those friends like started introducing me to their like daily prayer life and how that transformed them and their hearts and how they like stopped caring about what people thought of them. And they were just so themselves. And they, like you said, like they were normal. And of course, I mean, honestly, no matter where you go, like there's going to be weird people. Like I've worked in a hospital and there's been really weird people who work in the hospital that have no religious affiliation.
Right.
But I mean, so yeah, there were some people here that I was like, oh, okay, we're not like super good friends. But like, there was also insane amount of people who were so normal and they had Jesus at the center of their life. And I was like, wait, like you can actually like be happy with Jesus in your life. Like he knows you, like they had a relationship with him. So I feel like that was when I realized that was possible. That's when I feel like I was like, okay, like I need to start making this real so that I'm not like going to these other things for happiness.
Right. You were really being your true self in the way, not in the modern sense, but as our friend Catherine of Siena says, be who God made you to be and you'll set the world on fire.
Right.
And I feel like once you did that, right, once you really identified like this is a personal relationship with Christ, then you really took off in the faith.
Right.
And you eventually started leading groups
Women's
of women,
groups,
and that was super cool to see.
Yeah.
We'll get to that a little bit later. But Mr. Norby, on the other hand, you're a very, relational person, right? You're one of my best friends. And we had a lot of good memories, but you are quite the intellectual. And so guide us through kind of your journey with, he is the way, the truth, and the life. How did you figure that out?
Yeah, I think at first it was definitely kind of an intellectual search of, and also just like existential of like, what are we made for? And just, all the pressing questions about, about what we're made for and, what life is for. Obviously, we're a part of that. But I think, at first I came in, I didn't really have any, knowledge of the faith. And so as I first was trying to determine, like, is this, something I want to keep up, like practicing the faith, going to Mass, I just, picked up the New Testament that Father Nielsen gave me and read through it, and then would kind of, get really into like apologetic stuff online of like, a lot of my family has like Protestant background. And then so I'd be kind of trying to learn like what are the differences between, the Catholic Church and other forms of Christianity, and then even beyond that in other religions. And I think I just, I had great sources that I found on the internet and everywhere to guide me in that. And I think that really like set me on fire, because it was just, as you were saying, the way, the truth, and the life. And so like just this encounter with truth to a degree like that had never even come close to before was just like what really set my heart on fire. And it was also something that I just, I don't know, kind of fell in love with, because I also just thought back of like, well, I was raised in this and I still like didn't pick up any of this, so it felt like I was kind of missing out on something for so long. So it felt nice to be like, I felt like I was like let in on so much.
Right. He's the fulfillment of all desire.
And so that, I think that desire to know like the truth is definitely something that still just like drives me quite a bit. And so I think that was kind of the foundational aspect of getting into it.
Do you remember one particular, point you heard, or one apologetical note, or, some verse of scripture or something that really struck a chord in your heart where you were just transformed and you went all in because of this?
I think probably the biggest thing was the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. Like reading John 6, and then, kind of in my research of like, differences between other, like Protestants and Catholics. Obviously there's a big split on interpretation of that. And so it was just like, to me, it felt just so clear. And, the tradition of all of Christianity, I felt supported that. And it was just, it felt like I was united with the entire, 2,000-year history of Christianity. And I began to just like become so grateful for the Mass. And it was like, growing up, I thought Mass was like the most boring thing. Like, I would like, fake being sick to try and not go, or, it's like just ridiculous stuff. And then it's crazy though, because, now it's like my favorite thing ever. And so I think for me, a big thing was just reading about the Mass. Like a good place that I started was A Biblical Walk Through the Mass by Ted Sri.
Our boy Ted Sri, shout out.
But yeah, just like reading anything about the Mass, because I feel like our generation, especially of Catholics, like most people kind of, grow up and they still know nothing about the Mass. They might like kind of know some superficial stuff, but it's so deep and so well thought out. Yeah. And the connections like between the Mass and, the entirety of the Bible, and just like, it's insane. I feel like that was super transformative and made it much easier to like develop like a living prayer life. Cause it just, I don't know, it felt like I was in something much deeper than just like a superficial intellectual faith.
Yeah. You really dived into the spirituality and realizing the true presence. And when you're at the Holy Mass, right, you are at the renewal of Calvary. You are with our Lord when he is being crucified and resurrected, and you're taken through that experience. And that's why Vatican II calls it, the source and summit of the faith. And speaking of the Second Vatican Council, Alex Norby, you've had a lot of hats around St. Paul's. You've been a pastoral intern, you've been a men's group leader, been overall just a friend to many, but you are kind of known around these halls as the prudential, Vatican II expert. And so let's give the people a little bit of a summation, because, you did come on the podcast today, and I would like to give you the floor to talk about Vatican II for a couple minutes.
This is dangerous, Andrew.
Jannine's punching air right now.
I am.
Janine also might be a Vatican II expert because she's heard Alex talk about it so much at this point.
Literally, we've had dinners together, and we'll be talking about something random, and every time it gets back to Vatican II. I'm like, how? We were talking about...
I'm surprised she didn't text you and tell you this is off limits.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, you have the floor to talk about anything you'd like about the Second Vatican Council.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just, growing up, I encountered just kind of a lack of beauty with the faith. Mm-hmm. All the churches in my hometown,
right.
which, there's 5 or 6 Catholic churches. It's not like a tiny town. All of them are just, unfortunately, pretty ugly, right? And so there's just a complete desolation of beauty in this sacred space. And I think, in my experience, that also was present within the liturgy itself. And it didn't ever feel like something that was serious or reverent or it didn't feel like worshiping God. It felt like I was doing something for myself.
Yep.
And so I think St. Paul's was the first time I felt like I was at a liturgy that was truly focused on God. And I still remember, the first daily mass I went to at St. Paul's. It was Father Tim Mergen, and as you all know, Father Tim Mergen, not known as the best at chanting the mass.
We love Father Tim.
Father Tim is the best at many things, but not chanting the mass.
And he admits it.
But still, he went into the Sanctus, and he chanted just the simple Sanctus in Latin, and that was the first time I'd really heard such a beautiful chant in the mass, and that kind of captivated me, because I knew it was at the part of the Sanctus, but I had no clue, I don't know Latin, whatever. So then I kind of just talked to people and, started to figure out, research online, what was going on. And then I kind of discovered, Vatican II. And bottom line is, there were called to be some changes in the liturgy after Vatican II, but I think, it's pretty universally recognized that it, in most places, is very poorly implemented. And I would say that is what I experienced growing up, and I think a lot of people as well, of just Vatican II was supposed to do a lot of things, and the things that came after it, I think, were not at all an objective of what they tried to accomplish with the liturgy, no reverence for the Eucharist, kind of just obviously people have different tastes in music and whatnot, but kind of, I felt like I was hearing kind of some dry, folksy hymns that really, now I feel don't really have a good, or not a good fit for the Mass. And so I felt like I was lacking anything sacred, and I feel like we've lost a lot of the sacred in a lot of places. And a lot of people sometimes think oh yeah, that was Vatican II. But my passion is no, that's not Vatican II.
Right.
Vatican II had nothing against the sacred. Yeah, restoring the sacred and adapting it better for us to be able to experience that in our tumultuous age. So.
Very well put, Jeannine. I thank you for your patience. I know that's
that was the best explanation of Vatican II I think I've ever heard you.
Yeah.
Wow.
The most concise.
Very good. Thank you for saying your best for the Vox Poly.
Right.
I like to tell one story before we move on to another topic, but I was one time having dinner with the Norbys, and we started talking about Vatican II a little bit. And then Alex went, he was still working on his pitch, so it was probably about double the length.
Triple.
And then
we're not time.
I turned to Jeannine and I go, "Oh, thanks for talking about that, Alex. Jeannine, how's your family doing?" She starts talking about her family for a couple minutes, and then Alex goes, "We still haven't seen the proper implementation of Vatican II by the bishops." Because he was just still meditating and thinking about the Second Vatican Council.
I don't even think you got, and I don't know if you listened to anything I said about the fam, but that's all right,
Well,
I didn't interrupt though. I waited for a lull in conversation. but on that, we have not seen the proper implementation of Vatican II in the liturgy. That's kind of like the catch for it, or the summation of all that I say.
The headline.
And then it was super cool having when Voice of Reason was on Pints with Aquinas. He's like talking about the same topic, and he's like, yeah, this church in Omaha, St. Peter's, like it was the fulfillment of Vatican II.
Right.
And I was like,
you guys had
whipped out my phone. Andrew and I, we went to Nebraska to visit, our best friend Greg in the fall. And so we were driving back from Lincoln and hit a morning mass in Omaha on Sunday. And I walked in there and they were like processing out from the previous mass. And it was just so glorious. And I turned to Andrew, I was like, this is the fulfillment of Vatican II.
I remember him exactly those words. I think it was more of a gentle whisper. This is the fulfillment of Vatican II.
And yeah, as soon as you guys got home from that trip.
And then we heard it on Pints with Aquinas, and it was like, oh my gosh.
As soon as you guys got home from that trip.
Shout out St. Peter's in Omaha.
Right.
Great church.
Exactly.
Great
Shout out
parish.
St. Peter's. All right, well, we kind of mentioned it about, the Second Vatican Council is just a foray kind of into the different parts about marriage that you have to navigate, Alex might have to hear a little bit of Jeannine yapping, and Jeannine's going to have to listen to Alex talk about Vatican II, right? So let's talk a little bit about marriage and what wisdom you can bestow, although you're only about 2 months in, but of the brief wisdom, I just want to hear some things that you've learned in marriage, some things that have been hard, but also some of the joys of marriage to give our students and our audience a little bit of an understanding of, what reality of marriage is like. So Jeannine, why don't you start us off?
Yeah. No, I think that one of the best things that I heard from somebody kind of describing what marriage is not, that I think going through college and especially getting involved in my faith, I just I don't know, I think it's just super easy to romanticize it. Not that there is not a romantic aspect of marriage and being a couple, there is absolutely romance in that. But you're marrying, of course, I love you, but you are a fallen human being, just like I am, Mm-hmm. And so my sister one time said to me, Jeannine, marriage is not like the movies. And I don't think you realize how much you think it is like the movie, you need to think about that. And so, cause just in our society, I think it's super common to just be it's I don't know. I don't want to say this about everything that we are given in our in our day and age, but a lot of what we are fed is about you, how to make yourself better. It's just very focus on yourself, you come first, and to some aspect that's true. Of course you need to take proper care of yourself. But I think that the devil, especially for me, kind of got into that and was if your marriage is not perfect, if he is not helping you with the dishes, if he says something that kind of hurts your feelings, or if he isn't doing everything that you want him to do, then that means you don't have a good marriage, or that means you're not meant to be together,
right.
Or, and so that's actually the opposite of what we're called to as Christians. Is the way of the cross. And
exactly.
I'm not of a religious order, so I'm not a spouse of Jesus. So, you are my spouse, and that comes with our pasts, that comes with our current, that, the present day and the future. And so I think that kind of renouncing the lies of this has to be perfect. Yeah. We can't fight. We're not, you pissed me off, so therefore it's you versus me, I think that has been something to navigate that prior to getting married and prior to engagement was you deserve to treat me like a queen at all times, I deserve this, you can never mess up kind of a thing, if you're ever short or if you're ever annoyed, that is off limits. You're not allowed to be like that, because that's not how a man should be. That's not how a man should treat a woman. And so I think that kind of overcoming those lies has been difficult, but it's really shown me how to better love, because love is the best. Obviously we know this from the Bible, the best form. I'm like totally gonna butcher this, but
faith, hope, and love, but love trumps all.
And you lay down your life for another, and so that means like even if like you're not feeling well. Oh, this is a good one. If you have been at work all day and you haven't prayed yet in the day, and you want to just like sit down and pray, right? Because I do think that that's important to like give each other the opportunity to pray every day. If you haven't prayed yet, then I need to let you pray. Like I need to like if that means like I made all the dinner and like I do the dishes, like I'm laying down my life for you in that way and doing the dishes.
Right.
Even though I also made dinner to like let you pray. You know what I mean? And so it's like stuff like that, that is kind of like it's the everyday, it's the ordinary things that I feel like you romanticize. And I feel like it's easy to romanticize that stuff, but it's just not reality in the sense of like every moment is just going to be like this like everything is just like so great once you're married and we're just super happy all the time, you know? I think our relationship gets so much stronger when we like argue and of course we don't want to argue, but when we reconcile and come back together and like find each other again and remember that we're like working towards the goal together, and that makes our relationship so much stronger. Right. So I don't know. That was kind of all over the place. But.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It reminds me of when I lived at the Carroll House, my friend and roommate Tim Sweetlick used to like to say, every guy wants to be Saint Joseph, head of the Holy Family and terror of demons, but nobody wants to do the dishes.
Yeah, right.
And I always like thinking about that we, St. Josemaria has that line that, you would all be crucified in front of thousands, but you won't bear the daily pinpricks of every single day. And that's really what, sanctity looks like, is that white martyrdom. The blood of the martyrs isn't always red, right? Sometimes it just looks like, cleaning up after one another, or just taking care and doing that extra thing for that person. And that can be applied in anything, but I think specifically within marriage, that's why it's an arena of sanctity, because you're able to do that so much more often, which is really the purpose of your life.
And I feel like, especially, I don't know, this might just be a me thing, but I feel like especially women just like really romanticize it and romanticize like the fact that we're going to be together and it's going to be just this romantic thing. But like you just said, it's like those like pins of like daily life that you have to like kind of die to yourself to and be like, okay, like, and not to say like, again, like the romance is totally there. Of course. And
come on, it's Alex Norby.
Right. I mean, the most romantic guy ever.
Come on now.
Right. And, but like, it is those pins of daily life that I wish I didn't get my head so like caught in the clouds,
Yeah.
I didn't romanticize that as much, but, and like, I don't know, God just like has a plan for you, and just like, don't lose hope in his plan. Like you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life. Like, that's right. It's okay if like those relationships aren't working out, because like, trust me, like you don't want to be with somebody who like doesn't want to be with you, or like you don't want to be with somebody who doesn't prioritize you or whatever reason. So I think once I found Alex and he met all those boxes, like, and working with like our faith in God, like, he makes it clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hear the man's side of things in marriage. Mr. Norby, what wisdom do you have to bestow on the audience?
Yeah, I think you hit it right head on with the quote from Saint Josemaria about the pinpricks of daily life. And I think that has been kind of like the, maybe most difficult, but also most fruitful part that I've seen so far from our marriage is like, given that, you don't live together before marriage, like there is, people would always press me about that at my job this past year of like, you're not living with your fiance? Like, what if she does things that annoy you? Like, then what?
And I do.
Yeah, and, sure. Yeah. And then so now like we're married and like she does do things that annoy me and vice versa, like they're right. But at the same time, it's like, if I really do love her, those things aren't going to get in the way of that. Exactly. And so I think, part of the genius of like our view of relationships and marriages, like, we weren't like, when you don't live together, you're not expecting the other person to be like perfect for you. And you're not like looking for things to like reasons not to, go through with it. Like where I feel like if you live together, it could turn into a thing of like you're looking for things that could possibly like irritate you to the point where you just don't want to be with them anymore.
Right.
And so I feel like those annoyances that we've encountered with one another has kind of like, well, one, we can address them and kind of learn more about each other and work beyond that, and we become closer through that. But I think the other part of it is that it kind of causes you to look inward, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, with all the things that like I could get annoyed about, because I feel like I'm pretty easily annoyed. And like anytime I get annoyed, you know, yeah, there might be a valid reason and it might be able to be corrected. But I think there's always something deeper of like, okay, well, if I look inside, like what does it say about like my pride of like why I get upset about that or why I get annoyed by this thing? You know, even if it's something that's valid to be like take issue with, I think it's still important to really look inside and be like, should I be getting annoyed with this? And if like, even if it's valid to get annoyed with it, like, you know, should it really be making me this upset? And just kind of like bringing that to the Lord. And I've, you know, just seeing him work through that already. And I don't know, I feel like I've become like more patient and just a better husband because of it. But I think, just in those ordinary things, right? As St. Josemaria says, you know, it's all about the ordinary and those pinpricks of daily life that I think just causing you to look inward on yourself of like, how can I better love her through that? And how can I become better myself by being more tolerant of that?
Right. And I think that's such a good way to look at it in terms of, right, the goal of our life is to become a saint. And in order to become a saint, we need to love. And to love, we need to sacrifice for one another. And so just in marriage, it's beautiful to hear kind of your guys' story of like, yeah, I have to sacrifice for the other person, but that's actually how I grow in sanctity. And the purpose of my life is not easiness or pleasure, but really being able to be a gift to the other person. And I think a modern lie that we like to tell ourselves is that the cross is some, you know, grand thing, right? Whether it's, you know, overcoming disease or, you know, becoming a doctor or that's all part of it in your vocation. But really the cross is like the daily hardships of everyday life. And so I think for students, what would you guys recommend for like, what are the best practical ways to prepare yourself for marriage? And then maybe as a side bit, like, what do you think they should be looking for in a spouse? Because we have a lot of students that maybe they're dating or maybe they're, you know, single in that single season and looking for someone. What should they be kind of looking for?
Yeah. Well, I think like the best thing I can say that really, really, really changed me. And, you know, like I was, of course, like in the super into Madison, like the crowd, like, you know, and once I started making daily prayer regular, like once I started like, and I think we could both say this, is that once I started praying, I mean, I even started praying like 5 minutes a day, you know, and that was it. But like God works with that, you know? And so I feel like the more that you get to know him, you get to know yourself and you know, like, okay, like this is what I like, maybe I'm struggling with, like, these are my strengths and, things just become clearer. Like, I don't know. It's just like almost like I don't know. I want to just say like when you're super congested and then you're just like, you know, sinuses clear up and you can finally breathe and smell again. It's just kind of like that. Like, but like everything starts to like kind of fall into place and you just like kind of are like, you start to have less of a desire for the things that you might have had a desire for before. So like, again, I mentioned, something that I was really attracted to was attention. And just like unhealthy attention. And so I thought that my future husband would just be giving me all sorts of attention. Like, this is what I need. This is like, you know, but like in daily prayer and just like being like striving every day to like just do a little bit more, you know, just like a little bit, like even if it was like 6 minutes the next day, you know, something like that. I began to learn like that's actually like a really like that's a vice and like that's not something that means that somebody loves me, you know, like that's like, you know, so I would say like kind of, first of all, daily prayer, I can't emphasize that enough. Yeah. That's the number one thing. And like, the more that you get to know him, like the more you know yourself.
Yep.
And
Amen.
so when looking for a spouse, like I would say just like, yeah, looking inward and just kind of like contemplating, like, especially like one thing that helped me was contemplating the Gospels and knowing who Jesus was, because I was like, okay, like, who are you? You know? And like, I feel like you're going to get me where I want to go. So like, and it took me a while to realize that like, it's a conversation between the both of us, like me and him. And so like, once I started learning more about him, I like learned so much more about myself again. And so it's just like through those like tugs on the heart, I was like able to kind of like discern properly, like, is this relationship working out? Okay, I see that there's a lot of good in this relationship, but I also see that there's some red flags too.
Right.
And so when looking for a spouse, especially in college, like I think another thing to remember is like you're literally 20.
Yep.
So it's like you're gonna like be figuring yourself out. Like that's super normal. And like the boys are gonna be figuring themselves out probably more than you are as a woman. I mean, that's totally my assumption, but like, I mean, like boys also have a long way to go, you know? And
Right,
so I think that like, we're all kind of just like in this, like, we're figuring ourselves out and the world out together kind of a thing. And it's okay that it takes time and that it like, it's okay that it takes time. I didn't meet you till my senior year, like actually like talked to you, I feel like for the first time until my senior year. And so, then, and as you like prioritize God and as you put him at the center of your heart, and really work towards that as the number one thing, then I feel like it's so much easier to discern if something is, right.
Yeah.
And, not to like, again, romanticize it and like look at the really nitpicky details of another person. Like literally, like again, like Alex is a much quieter guy than I am. And he likes to read, and he was not like super excited. You were not like giving me all sorts of attention in like this like kind of more eccentric way that I thought like my future husband was going to need to get, you know, it was super subtle, and you were just very you just knew what you wanted. And so I think that is really what I was looking for. And so just like God, again, with that like relationship with Jesus helped me to like just kind of like make that firm decision to be like, okay, we should go on a date, you know, we should start dating, you know. And then as like things like kept unraveling, that it was like, okay, I totally see you as my future husband, even though like it might have been different what I thought my future husband would be like a few years ago, you know.
Yeah, you didn't think someone would rant to you about Vatican II, you know.
No,
years ago,
I literally never thought that ever. But you know,
here we are.
You know.
She couldn't have dreamt of that. You know?
No, but I think the main thing I want to like say is that daily prayer is the biggest thing. And kind of, I don't know, this is cheesy, but just like follow your heart, you know, like, I don't know, like it's true though.
Right. If you're praying,
you know?
To pray is to know more about you.
To Christ.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If your heart is conformed
Because
to
when
Christ.
you're in prayer, you're abiding in Christ. And so then Christ is really
and to know that
leading
he's
the way.
not going to be perfect. Like he's actually not going to be perfect, and that's okay.
That is your boyfriend or your spouse, not Jesus.
Yes. Right. Yes, Jesus is perfect. But your boyfriend or your future spouse is not going to be perfect, and that's okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah, because when we begin to pray, right, we echo that call of John the Baptist, you know, may he increase, may we decrease. Right. Less of us, more of Christ leading the way. Mr. Norby, in the few minutes that we have left, what have you kind of taken away? If you went back to your 18-year-old self and you were to kind of give some advice to yourself before you entered college, what would you say?
Yeah, I think definitely echoing what Jeannine said, start out with a daily prayer life. I think it's your discernment gets super cloudy if you're not. And it's also it's very hard, as we've been talking about, like the more that you pray and abide in Christ, the more you become like who God wants you to be, and the best version of yourself, as you know, as we're all into.
Right.
And so, daily prayer is the way to become the best version of yourself and to really know yourself and what you want. Because as you were saying, like I knew what I wanted at the time that I was pursuing you, and that was like something that you needed, that dependability. So I think like getting to a point where you can firmly know what you want before, you know, like don't just date somebody just because. I feel like we kind of fall into the trap of like we feel like just because our peers or whatever, like our media, we think we're supposed to be in relationships just because like, you know, we have some sort of like feeling for somebody. And obviously it's a great starting place, but at the same time, you know, you should know what you want, and you should know, just be intentional, you know. No relationship is going to go anywhere if you're not intentional, especially guys, you know. Ladies love it when you're intentional. So, daily prayer, be intentional, and just, follow the Lord daily, and you know, he'll do crazy things that you couldn't dream up yourself. So,
amen.
I think a lot of times we're afraid to let go of those things. Like if you're in, you know, current relationship that has kind of some like sticky stuff, you know, like I don't know if this is really the best thing for me, but I really, you know, like this person. I don't know. I feel like, you know, sometimes God takes those things away and those relationships away only to bring something better. You know, we know that.
Right.
We know that. So.
And that's been one thing throughout our marriage so far is like trusting in God. That's huge. And like you said, like even if you're in a relationship right now that you're like, you know, there's really like a lot of great things about this person, but there's just stuff I just like can't get past. You know, give it to God and trust that he knows your heart and that he knows you and that he wants the best for you. He doesn't want you to be miserable. And he will never show you gold and give you silver. Mm-hmm. So
that's good.
He will never let you down. So if you just can't get past something in your heart, trust that he will take care of you if you decide to let that go. Or, you know, if it's the opposite, that he wants you to continue to pursue it, then like, you know, trust in that too. But yeah, trust is huge and it's hard.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. And honestly, if you have obviously God first, you can't have an ordered life or relationship without proper order with God. But, you know, I feel like if you strive your best to like live those relationships according to what God is calling us to, you know, it's hard to like really go astray, mm-hmm. you know? So, I mean, just really doing your best to like not let your heart just get, obviously we know like physical chastity is important, but I think, you know, something that we still very much fall into is just kind of like letting our heart go at like the drop of a hat. And that, you know, can kind of cause you to make, it's not like you don't want to like, you know, be romantic or anything like that, but you just don't want to like give your heart away just like that. Because I think then you put yourself in vulnerable positions to being like too influenced by a certain aspect of a person that could kind of lead you away from like properly looking at like what you want in your future spouse. So
that's beautiful. Last question, Jeannine, what do you want to be written on your gravestone?
Oh, what do I want to be written on my gravestone? I don't know. I would say, I don't know. This is something I have to think about. I would say probably like a Bible verse, one of my faves. I don't know. There's so many Bible verses. I don't know. If God is for us, who can be against us? That is what I want in my gravestone.
That's right.
Is it from Romans?
Yeah, Romans 4:8, I think.
Romans
8.
4.
Romans
8.
I think it's God is for us.
8:28 or something.
Who can be against us? And that was our reading.
That was in Andrew's reading.
That was your reading at our wedding mass, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Norbs.
Also from the book of Romans 14 to you may think that you can eat anything, but the weak man eats only vegetables.
That's right, folks.
Anyway, what would I want written on my gravestone? I don't know. I don't know if it would be a Bible verse or maybe just like, you know,
something in Latin.
Yeah, probably like friend of God, faithful husband and father. You know,
there we go.
The class, in Latin.
Yeah.
Latin. And then they'll have an English translation.
No translation.
They'll all be learning Latin by then. The Norbys and their 10 kids will all
Our kids
know
will
Latin,
only
and
know
they'll
Latin.
be chanting Marian hymns at your gravestone.
Yeah,
that's the dream.
I don't know. Is it? That's your dream.
That's the dream.
That's my dream for you guys.
I've already told you what I want my funeral mass to be like. You know, so
right.
Got that.
Hopefully we won't have that for quite a long time, but we must conform to our Lord.
Anyways.
And with that, Norbys, thank you guys for coming on. You
Thank
guys
you.
are my
It
dearest
was a
friends.
pleasure.
It was an absolute pleasure, and you guys are the best. So
Yeah.
keep on killing it. Alex is off to med school. Jeannine just landed a new job as a nurse in
did.
Franklin. So we're so excited to see the things you guys are going to be doing. St.
Yeah.
Paul's always has a near and dear place for you guys in our hearts, and so can't wait to see how you guys set the world on fire.
Yeah.
Ladies
Awesome.
and gentlemen, final words. What do you got?
I just said keep up the Vox Poly. I love the podcast. You know, all the media outreach. Someday we'll overtake Pints of the Aquinas. But
Yeah, right.
Until
Hopefully.
then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. Pax and Godspeed.